Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to England once again and we're going to have a look at yet another of the beers that was very kindly sent to me by my good friend Adam over at Merseybeers. So make sure you check out the link to his channel in the video description below. He's just getting it off the ground. It's going to be a lot of different beer themed live streams and he's got a lot of really nice ideas that he's going to get up and going over the next little while. So it's going to be really interesting to contribute to those and hopefully his channel has a lot of success over the next little while. So as I say, make sure you check out the link to that in the video description below. Give him a subscribe and check out his videos when he does make them available. And a huge thank you once again to you, Adam, for making this review possible. For this review then, guys, we are going to return to one of Adam's local breweries, and you have seen these guys on the channel once before. So we're going to go back to the Baltic Triangle in the kind of southwestern part, right next to the water if you like, in Liverpool. And we're having a look at another beer from Black Lodge Brewery. This one is called Beginning of the End. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a double IPA with Citra and Centennial. So this should be quite interesting actually. The last beer that I had from these guys was the Southdown Baxter, which was a regular IPA. That one had a kind of unusual yeasty character to it, I thought. So I'm curious to see how this one turns out. But Adam tells me this is a very, very nice beer, and the beers that he has sent me have all been pretty damn good actually. So as I say, very, very curious to see what my second visit to Black Lodge Brewery has in store for us, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. As I've told you before, there's lots of really good craft breweries these days around England. The English beer scene is very, very strong, but for me it's very cool to review things from breweries that I hadn't necessarily heard of before, and Adam's picked out a very nice selection of beers from his local breweries. We've had Carnival, we've had Love Lane, we've had Black Lodge, and we've had a few other things from across England thanks to Adam. So yeah, I'll need to return the favour and get him some Swedish beers. Hopefully you can see Adam on my channel at some point at Christmas time. I'm hoping that we can meet up in Glasgow or Edinburgh or something like that. So some out and about videos with Adam in them to look forward to, I'm sure. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Black Lodge Brewery before, and I'm sure we will add some more to that in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's been added to quite regularly over the last little while because Adam sent me a good bunch of beers, about 18 or 19, something like that, and we are getting a fairly decent selection of English stuff over here in Sweden these days, which is great. So that will be added to regularly over the coming months and weeks and stuff like that. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Black Lodge Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So Black Lodge Brewery was founded back in 2015 by three guys. So this is Paul Siffert, who has a background in taxation, and he also established the Liverpool Craft Beer Company and also the Craft Beer Expo. There's Rob Tufnell, who owns the Clove Hitch Restaurant and also 23 Club, and then there's Rob Etherington, who serves as the brewery operations manager and director, and he is also the most active of those three owners that I've just mentioned. The brewery itself is based in the Baltic Triangle, which, like I said, is in the kind of southwestern part of the city. It's a former industrial area which has now become a hub for kind of start-up companies. There's quite a few breweries down there at the moment, and lots of different kind of boutique restaurants and stuff like this. But apparently they moved to a new site in 2019 at King's Docks. And they've got an on-site tap room these days, which opens Thursday to Sunday. And if you look at it if you look at the pictures of this thing, it is pretty damn impressive actually. And as of October 2020, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced around 325 different kinds of beer. So they have been very, very prolific. And these guys also own the Octopus restaurant behind the old blind school on Hardman, in the Knowledge Quarter of Liverpool as well, from what I understand. So yeah, this parent company, if you like, does have a hand in a few different places around the city. So therefore, you'll find the Black Lodge Brewery beers in quite a few different restaurants and stuff like that around the city. But they're a very highly regarded local brewery, and from what Adam tells me, it seems to be that Carnival, Lovely and Black Lodge are the really highly regarded breweries in Liverpool. The one that I had always heard of for a while was Mad Hatter, but unfortunately they went bust. They were a really interesting brewery actually. They were the very first brewery that I encountered from Liverpool, so it's good to see that the whole Liverpool beer scene has kind of returned, if you like, and got stronger over the last few years. And like I say, I am planning to do a sort of England tour, if you like, at some stage, and then visit all the different beer tubers in different places, and it will be quite nice to film a kind of meet the blogger thing with all of these guys and do some out and about videos. I definitely look forward to that actually. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Black Lodge Brewery for the moment. An interesting company, this one. It was a bit difficult to find too much information on these guys, so fingers crossed we can add more to that at some point in the near future. And like I said, hopefully we can review a few more beers from these guys at some point soon as well. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this beer then. If you want to learn more about the brewery, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on with this one then. So like I said to you at the start of the video, this one is an 8% double IPA, hopped with Citra and Centennial. The artwork, as you can see, is fairly similar to what we had with the last one, the South Down Baxter. I think that was that 6.8%, am I remembering rightly? But yeah, it's got this nice kind of almost 1970s style graphic artwork on it actually. It reminds me of wallpaper that you see in some of these 1970s programs and stuff like that. But there you can see, there is Black Lodge Brewery's symbol there on the back, kind of like a digital alarm clock or something. But yeah, you can also see there is one of the other symbols there that Black Lodge Brewery have too. Let me just get that right into the camera so you can see. There you are. But yeah, 8% double IPA this one. It tells you on the back here, hops are Citra and Centennial. We know the Citra is the kind of OG, how do you say, the OG high alpha acid hop, 14% alpha acid, usually mangoes, a little bit of lemon lime, a little bit of gooseberry, all of these kind of things. Quite a complex hop. And Centennial, we know, is a mainly lemony leaning one. So the malt base in this is Maris Otter, malted wheat and golden oats. So this one, by the looks of it, should be quite a creamy leaning New England double IPA, this one. So let's get it out and get on with the tasting then. 440ml can, which is of course standard for a lot of English breweries these days. So yeah, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious about this. One of the few breweries I can think of actually that doesn't use the 440s would be Arboreals. I think Harry over at Blue Nose Beer Reviews has reviewed. He reviews quite a few of them because he's not far away from Bristol. But they tend to do their beers in pint cans actually, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, we need to review some more Arboreals. I always quite enjoyed their beers, very sessionable from what I remember. But yeah, we always make the joke with Harry that anything above about 20% is sessionable for Harry. Harry Meadows Session Ale, I think that should be a new sub-style if you like. But yeah, as you can see and as you would expect, this one's poured a lovely, I would say, it's a kind of golden leaning amber, this one of the lighter amber beers that I've come across. You can see that the beer has poured with about a quarter to a third of a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head there, but that's fading away to be a very thin foamy layer. It's just going to leave a nice foamy ring around the edge of the glass. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But yeah, there is a slight degree of haze to this one. I'm wondering if we will get more haze out of it when we pour the rest of it in a little bit later. But as it stands, it actually has like a kind of West Coast level of haze to it rather than a New England level of haze. But you know, the malt base on this one is definitely a New England malt base. So yeah, as I say, it looks like a very, very nice beer. This one, on appearance, you might think it's a West Coaster. But yeah, you can get some New England ones that have less haze to them. So yeah, I'm curious to see what this one has in store for us. So it looks the part, it looks like a very, very nice beer. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on. Oh yeah, okay. So straight away with this beer, you pick up a little bit of that kind of Vermonty farmhouse yeasty kind of thing in there. There's a little bit of that woodiness, there's a little bit of graininess. coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, a bit of a woody, vegetally, herbal kind of thing from the yeast. As I say, I suspect it's probably a Vermont yeast, like a Lallemand or something like that. But in fairness, I have had similar aromas from some of the London ale yeasts as well, and I think it reminds me a little bit of Gamma Brewing Company, some of the aromas you get out of their beers. Gamma Brewing from Copenhagen, of course. Not sure how, if they're still getting over to the UK at the moment. They were for quite a long time, but I've not seen any of the English guys reviewing stuff from them for quite a wee while actually. But yeah, you do get quite a bit of yeasty character out of this one, that herbally, vegetally, woody type thing. So yeah, it's quite interesting, that. A little bit of a farmhousey kind of quality to it in the background there. But other than that, you get a little bit of breadiness to it. There's quite a bit of a grainy bread crust, you know, a kind of brown bready character. So yeah, nice little bit of brown bread, which I do like. I like that about this beer. Yeah, nice little bit of brown bread, kind of bread crusty, white bready character to this one. There's a wee bit of a biscuity sweetness in there, a little bit of a sweet caramel perhaps. But yeah, did it say it had Maris Otter in it? That would make sense. Did it say Maris Otter? Yeah, Maris Otter. That would make sense as to why you've got the that kind of biscuity sweetness in there. Maris Otter's got this lovely kind of oily McVitie's digestive kind of thing, but it also gives you some of these grainy brown bready quality notes coming out of this one. So yeah, this one is quite a bready smelling beer. I think I said the same about the last beer that I had from Black Lodge. It had this kind of almost English IPA quality to it, and the Maris Otter, in fairness, is going to give you that. Maris Otter is one of the sweeter English malts that you come across, but if you go to the classic English IPA category, they're definitely more kind of grainy, brown bready, and things like that. It's more the American ones that are smoother and sweeter, if you like. So yeah, I think this one, the last one, the Southdown Baxter, definitely had a bit more of an English IPA category to it, in my opinion. So yeah, you do get a little bit of that out of the nose on this one as well actually. It must be the yeast. I do think it's the yeast that they're using in this one. It could be organic grains as well that they're using, in fairness, that would give you a little bit of this this kind of nose, because the other brewery that I noticed this kind of thing from is Stockholm Brewing, and I know that they use organic grains in their beers. Because it just gives you almost a kind of slightly chalky, nose and slightly chalky flavour actually. So you do get a wee bit of that out of this. The malty and yeasty characters in this are quite interesting, and quite often with these beers, you can get these aromas out of them. And I have to say, it's not my favourite aroma to get in some of the IPAs actually, but it's in quite a lot of beers you'll get this in the aroma, but then it doesn't come out so much in the flavour. That has happened with quite a few of the Gamma beers that I've had in recent times. The Blow Pop, which was the most recent one I reviewed, was a little bit like that. So just pay attention to the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it. There's definitely a sort of Englishy IPA kind of character to this one, and you've also got a little bit of that kind of New Englandy Vermont type yeast thing going on, which is interesting. So yeah, take a little bit of time to pay attention to that, but I think the aroma on the malty and yeasty side of this beer is pretty interesting. On the hoppy side of things then, I think this is where the beer does come alive a bit more. So you do get a wee touch of earthiness out of this one. I think on the green side of the hops it really leans towards the floral aromatic side of things. When you've got Citra and Centennial in the beer, to be honest, that is not surprising in the slightest, I would say. You are going to get a nice big floral aromaticity out of both of these hops. Nice little bit of lighter grassiness there, of course. Which is, I think that's going to come from both of them as well, but the fruity side of the beer is quite interesting too for me, so let's focus on that. Green side of the hops, as I say though, a little bit earthy, a little bit grassy, but it does have more of a kind of floral aromaticity to it, which is quite nice. So yeah, fruity side of the beer then, it's kind of what you'd expect, to be honest. You do get a little, you do get a little bit of that kind of lemony citrus from the Centennial, which is quite nice. But you also get a good little bit of a kind of mangoey, a slightly more oily mangoey note out of this one, and you can pick out a little bit of lemon lime. I think this is a very citrusy leaning IPA for me. There's a wee bit of apricot in there perhaps, but yeah, I'd say mangoes. Yeah, mangoes, a little bit apricot-y, a little bit kind of lemon limey, and yeah, I do like how that goes together. So yeah, it's it's all good. It's all good on this one. Quite a citrusy leaning IPA. This I'm really curious just to see how this turns out in the flavour now. So take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of this, as I said, but we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. So this one is called The Beginning of the End, a double IPA coming in at 8% ABV from the Black Lodge Brewery in the Baltic Triangle, or the King's Docks area of the Baltic Triangle in Liverpool. Once again, a big thank you to Adam from Merseybeers for making this review possible. Check out the link to his channel in the video description below. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, that's nice. That I do like this. This one's interesting. It definitely has a little bit of that kind of farmhousey character to it, and as I suspected, there was a wee bit of a kind of sedimenty quality to this one. So you definitely see that in the you can definitely see that now that we've poured the other part of it. Sorry, camera control is going a little bit crazy there. But yeah, you can definitely see a little bit of the fact that this is a little bit more hazy now. So let's just take another taste of that and see how that makes a difference. Yeah, it definitely comes across as a little bit fuller now, if you like. So yeah, that is interesting. I would say that I like this one better than the Southdown Baxter, and I think because it's obviously slightly higher in its alcohol content, I think the malt kind of balances out the yeastiness a little bit more in this one, because that was one of the things I felt that the yeast and the yeasty character that you had in the last beer was just a little bit too strong, to be honest with you, and I think that you've got more malt in this to balance it out. I think that works out better, and to be fair, I found that with the breweries that I mentioned earlier, the Gamma beers, and I found that the same. I think their double IPAs with these kind of yeasts work out a little bit better, because it is, like I say, the farmhousey yeasts for me tend to work better in the double IPAs than they do in the singles, so I think that's probably why this beer just suits my taste a little bit more. But as I always say, different beers are subjective, and different people like different things, but I definitely think this comes across as a slightly more refined and more balanced beer than the Southdown Baxter did. So I like this one. I do like this. So again, thank you to Adam for this one. Yeah, it definitely comes across as a little bit more rounded, if you like. Certainly, it certainly does, and it's stupidly drinkable for an 8%er as well. Dangerously drinkable. So yeah, let's try and describe the flavour of this beer then. So straight away with this one, you get that nice kind of white bready quality that just blankets the middle of your tongue. You do get a little bit of that more kind of grainy bread crusty quality coming out of the beer as well. So it's the kind of crisp white bread and the sort of bread crusty note that forms the backbone of this beer. If you go towards the back third of your palate, you can feel there is a slightly thicker bready note there, so there's a little bit of an almost wheaty character coming out of this one. I don't think it had wheat in it, if I remember rightly. It was just no, it did. Telling you lies. So it's malted wheat and gold notes in this one. So that does make sense. So you can see that kind of wheaty quality. It does have a little bit of that slightly more bitey wheat quality on the back third of your tongue. You can feel the breadiness just thickening up a little bit, and you feel a little bit of the kind of bitey graininess on the back third of that palate there, which is quite nice. But the wheat is a little bit smoother as you come further forward. Underneath that, I mean, you can pick out the yeasty qualities there as well. You get some of those woody, kind of slightly vegetally herbal. I don't know if herbal's the right word, but yeah, woody vegetally kind of things. You do get those forming the base of the. You do get those forming the base of the beer in that back third of your palate. But as you move further forward, you can feel the thickness just kind of come down a little bit in the mouthfeel, if you like. You can feel that the malty side of the beer just thins out a little bit, and on top of that bready base that I was talking about, you get some of that nice oaty kind of smoothness in there, and on top of that oaty smoothness, that's where you get the Maris Otter. You get a wee bit of that. You get a little bit of that kind of oily, biscuity kind of note. I've always found that Maris Otter has a really nice biscuity quality to it. It's probably my favourite English malt type, actually, is Maris Otter. It's beautiful malt. There's quite a few breweries in Scotland, such as Cromarty, brewery, they do some really nice, more old school IPAs, and they like to use Maris Otter in those beers. But yeah, in the middle of your palate, you do get a kind of almost sweet. It's almost caramel, but it's more of a biscuity caramel, if that makes sense, like a kind of caramel wafery sort of thing. You can feel that slightly more oily character, and as you move out from the very centre of your palate, you start to get more. You do start to get a little bit more kind of. You do start to get a little bit more. How would you say? You get a little bit more biscuity graininess out of the beer, which is quite nice. So yeah, the malt base in this one is kind of what you'd expect, and like I said, I think this one just works a lot better than the Southdown Baxter did, and I think it's the fact that this is a double IPA. I think the stronger malty character just balances out the yeastiness in this beer a lot more, and I think that's why this one suits my taste a little bit better. I don't like these farmhousey yeasts to be overpowering, if you like, and I think in the Southdown Baxter it just was a little bit too prominent in the flavour for me. I think I would say that about this. So this beer works a lot better for me. I'd be curious to see how these guys would do a West Coast IPA, because obviously the two IPAs we've tried have been New England's, oaty based IPAs. So I would be curious to see how they would do an old school West Coast, and some lagers and porters and some darker beers could be interesting from these guys actually as well. I'd be curious to see some other different styles from this. So I think what Adam and I might need to do when I see him in Liverpool is go to Black Lodge and film a little out and about video with a tasting flight or something like that. That would be quite fun. So yeah, that's definitely going to be on the cards actually. So yeah, we'll definitely do that. But let's move on to the hoppy side of this beer then. I think we've described the malt base fairly well on this one. But yeah, on the back corners of the palate you will get a little bit of earthiness out of the beer. As you move further forward along the sides of the palate, it becomes a little bit herbal. You get a wee touch of floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palate, then around the front curve of the tongue it's just a little bit lighter and more grassy in my mind, and I really like how that goes together. And the fruitiness of this beer, I think the more you drink of this, the more the fruitiness comes out, and it does come across really, really nicely, to be honest with you. The fruity character in this beer, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, where to start with that then? As I always say, the front third of your palate, that's where the nice oily bubble comes out, and you get those juicy, fruity esters coming out of the beer. So when you go to the back of that front part of your palate, there is a little bit of a kind of passion fruity note there. And as you move further forward, it's got a little bit more of an oily, juicy mango. I find the fruits in this one quite oily, which is interesting for a New England, because normally they're quite juicy, but I think this beer, I would say, it's definitely not the creamiest of New Englands that you're going to come across. This is definitely a slightly more oily and farmhousey New England rather than anything else. But yeah, you do get a little bit of that kind of passion fruity note from the citra there as you move further forward. It does get a little bit mango-like. There's a few... how do you say, there's a few sort of, there's a few kind of apricot-y sort of peary esters coming out of this one further forward than that, and then as you reach the kind of front part of your palate, I think you get a slightly more oily character, and the Centennial starts to come out a wee bit more as well actually. I think the pear almost has a little bit of an oily character on the front of the tongue too, but the Centennial I think sort of sits on the very tip of the palate, which is quite nice. With this one as well. So yeah, the lemony zestiness from the Centennial in this comes out really nicely, to be honest. So yeah, this is a really interesting beer, and I think on that note we should kind of go on to the mouthfeel of this one, because as I said, I find this to be quite a light and sort of oily New England beer in my mind. It's I would say it's these two beers that I've had from Black Lodge have been quite curious. They've been quite different from other things that I've tried before. It's almost like when I tried Heady Topper and Focal Banger from Alchemist Brewery for the first time, because I did not expect those to be farmhousey in the way they were, because the New England IPAs in Sweden were either wheaty and bitey or oaty and creamy. This one is definitely one of these slightly more grainy, farmhousey type ones, and I find this to be a very light and sort of more oily leaning New England IPA, and it's definitely got a little bit of an English character to it as well. And I don't think it's the Maris Otter that's doing that. It could even be the yeast, but I really find that this one has a bit of an old school kind of English traditional ale type vibe about it in the middle of the palate. It really does have a little bit of that. So this is quite a quirky New England IPA for me. This one really, if you like the Alchemists, you know, the Focal Banger and the Heady Topper, if you like these slightly more farmhousey New England IPAs, this is one of the ones that you are going to enjoy actually. So I would recommend it if that's your thing actually. So yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of summarise the flavour profile of this one. But overall, I would say that it's quite a mid-bodied beer. The carbonation is quite smooth. As I say, it's quite a wet but still oily mouthfeel. In terms of IBUs, this is quite low, I think. Yeah, this is about, I think this is your kind of standard 30 IBU, to be honest with you. Which is a bit lower for a double IPA, because normally they make the double IPAs 40 and sometimes 50. Does it say on the can what the IBUs are? No, it doesn't. But yeah, this one's quite, for a double IPA, normally you would expect these just to be slightly higher. 30 is standard for a New England IPA, but the 40, yeah, 40 IBUs is a little bit more standard. 40 or 50 for a double IPA is kind of standard. They usually amp it up a little bit. So yeah, quite a low bitterness one. The malt base, like I say, it gets slightly sweeter. I think the sweetness out of this beer builds the further you go into the aftertaste, but you do get a little bit of that graininess and breadiness kind of sitting there in the middle of the palate as you go further forward into the flavour. But yeah, you've got a nice kind of, you do have a nice sort of oily, how would we say, yeah, there's a nice little bit of an oily, sweet caramelly note in the middle of the palate there. You do get a little bit of sweetness out of the malt base, but you also get these kind of grainy, bready sort of things too, and the fruits for me are slightly more oily, but still slightly juicy at the same time. So definitely more of a wet and kind of oily leaning New England IPA for me, this one. But I think definitely with the way that these guys are brewing the beers, I'd be curious to try another single IPA and another double IPA just to see if my theory kind of holds out. But I think with the way that these guys brew their beers, I would definitely choose the doubles over the singles. I think with the slightly more farmhousey character, for me at least, I prefer a slightly stronger malt presence to balance that out, so I would probably have to go for the doubles. So yeah, I think that's just a kind of personal preference for me. Let me know your own thoughts about that in the comment section below, but I definitely think this beer, to me at least, it strikes me as a lot more balanced than the Southdown Baxter did. So yeah, thumbs up to Black Lodge Brewery for this one. I think they've got this one just kind of spot on actually, and the Citra and Centennial is quite an interesting combination. It's not one that you find too often these days, so it's got a nice balance between the tropical and the more kind of citrusy fruits as well. But yeah, this definitely makes me curious to try a few different styles of beer from these guys. A West Coast IPA would be great, maybe a black IPA as well, and maybe some lagers and stuff. I need to have a look at what other stuff these guys have actually done. But yeah, let's round off the review there. But thank you again to Adam for making this review possible. Again, make sure you check out the link to his channel in the video description below. But this one was the beginning of the end, an 8% New England's double IPA from Black Lodge Brewery in the King's Docks and Baltic Triangle in Liverpool, one of Adam's local breweries. But yeah, thank you again for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Black Lodge Brewery. We will return to these guys at some point fairly soon, I would think. We are getting towards the end of the Adam series of beers, but I'm sure we can arrange something with them to get some more beers again at some point in the future. So yeah, you will see more Liverpool beers on the channel at some point soon, I'm fairly sure. But yeah, thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out my social media, make sure you check out Adam over at Merseybeers, and have a go at some of these Black Lodge Brewery things if you get the chance. Till the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, and I'll catch you guys very soon.